This is a supplementary topic for the functions of life. This is requirements to be considered a living organism. There are six: organization, metabolism, growth and development, response to stimuli, reproduction, and homeostasis. So for organizations, living organisms are highly organized and they have a complex structure, no? And that complex structure allows them to carry out specific functions. They are made up of one or more cells that follows the cell theory, the ideas in the cell theory, which are the basic building blocks of life. For metabolism, you have already been introduced to anabolism and catabolism. Living organisms have the ability to use their energy from their environment to carry out essential life processes. And this involves conversion of energy from one form to another, such as breakdown of food to release energy for cellular processes, such as those two, the metabolism and catabolism and anabolism. For growth and development, living organisms have the ability to grow and develop over time, and this involves the synthesis of new materials and the transformation of existing materials to support growth and development. Response to stimuli. Living organisms are capable of responding to changes in their environment, such as, for example, the change in temperature, change in light, and also for other stimuli. Reproduction. Living organisms, they have the ability to reproduce either sexually or asexually. By that process, they can pass on their genetic information to the next generation. And lastly is homeostasis, where living organisms have the ability to maintain a stable internal environment, even sa mga phase of changes sa ilang external environment. Some examples of living organisms: bacteria, uh, they are unicellular organisms that are highly organized and they have complex structures. They are able to carry out also metabolism, and also they grow and they reproduce, and also they respond to stimuli and they maintain homeostasis. So they meet the requirements for to be considered as living organism. Also for trees and birds, amoebas also. Amoebas are also unicellular organisms. They also have highly organized structure, even though nga mula na sila, though blob lang. And they carry out complex functions. Nag-metabolize man sila, nag-grow, and they also reproduce. And they also respond to stimuli and they maintain homeostasis. And of course, human beings. So we also meet all the requirements to be considered as a living organism. The question is virus a living or non-living organism? That question of whether viruses are living or non-living organism, that is a topic of ongoing debate man gyapon sa subong among biologists. There is no clear consensus yet on whether a virus is a living, should be considered as a living or non-living organism gitman. On one hand, viruses share some characteristics with living organisms, kay may araman sila genetic material, either DNA or RNA. They can also evolve over time, right? Through genetic mutation. And they also have the ability to replicate themselves, di ba? Pero, kinahanglan nila sang host cells. On the other hand, they lack naman niya many other characteristics nga typically associated with life. They are not composed of cells. They also do not have the ability to carry out metabolism, and hindi sila ka-reproduce on their own. They also cannot maintain homeostasis, and di man sila ka-respond to stimuli in the same way that living organisms can. Because sang mga unique characteristics, some biologists consider virus to be non-living entities, while ang others, they consider them to be living only in the context of their interactions sa ilang host cells. Ultimately, ang question nga whether living siya or non-living is somewhat of a philosophical one, and the answer may depend on paano gina-define sang isa ka person ang ginatawag nga life, no? So, examples of non-living organisms are crystal, for example. They are highly organized structure even though nga may na-exhibit sila nga patterns, and also meron man nga growth and development. They are not able to respond sa changes sa environment nila. Such as, for example, ma-change in temperature or pressure. No, wala sila sang respond to that stimuli. However, crystals are not composed of they can respond to change in their environment, but they are not composed of cells. And they do not have the ability to carry out metabolism, and also they do not reproduce. For fire, it is a chemical reaction that converts fuel into heat, light, and other forms of energy, and it is able to grow, di ba? Nagatako man ng kalayo, and naga-spread in response to changes to its environment. So, meaning, amo na ang pag-respond niya sa change in sa iyang stimuli, wherein if magdamo ang oxygen or like depende sa kung ano ang availability of oxygen, mag-grow siya or magamay siya or mapatay siya. But it is not composed of cells, and it does not have any ability to carry out metabolism, and wala man siya naga-reproduce. And lastly, last example is computer programs. They are highly organized structure man, right? And they are capable of carrying out specific functions. They can also respond to changes in the environment, such as, for example, changes in the user input. Interactive man. However, ang computer programs, they are not composed of cells, and they do not have the ability to carry out metabolism as well, and wala man sila naga-reproduce. So, overall, while these non-living things, they exhibit some of the characteristics of living organisms, they are not fundamentally different from living organisms because they are fundamentally different sa living organisms because they lack the ability to carry out ang tanan nga requirement for to be considered as a living organism. So, there are other examples pa sa mga living organisms na although hindi nila ma-meet ang tanan nga requirement of for them to be called living organism, gina-consider man sila gaban as living organism, no? For example, may mga living organism nga hindi ka reproduce, na mga sterile animals na may mga hindi maka-respond sa stimuli na although nga hindi nila ma-carry out or hindi nila ma-checkan tanan nga requirements in to be considered as living organism, they are still considered as living organism. So those are the requirements to be considered as living organism.